Thank you, Beth. So the passage from Proverbs speaks of wisdom, and I was not amused, but curious to see that it was called a she. But that's another story. Trees have been seen as wise. The tree of life, for example. Trees may seem a surprising topic for a service, but actually the Bible has plenty to say about trees, from its very first chapter, of course in the Garden of Eden, to the very last book where it talks of the tree of life. But trees are also important because they are at the heart of our interdependence. So many of life's vital ingredients, clean air, fresh water, nourishing food, fuel for warmth, are all totally dependent on trees. We were created to be surrounded by trees. Think of cities, you know, and how parks and gardens and areas with trees raise people's spirits, as well as keeping the city cooler and the air cleaner. We know that this planet's land surfaces were once largely covered by trees and forests. Trees make us feel lots of positive things. However, over time we have destroyed most of the forests, and deforestation still continues. According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, the world has lost half its forests, and only a tenth of what remains is protected. Each year we lose another 130,000 square kilometres, an area the size of England. As we do so, we lose areas that are good for food and also pleasing to the eye, important for well-being. As we destroy the forest, we also destroy the habitats of many of God's created fellow creatures. Forests are one of the most biodiverse ecosystems that exists. They consist of species that are fine-tuned to their habitats. When the forests have gone, orangutans or orangutans, depending on where you come from, and Amazonian parrots have nowhere else to go. And neither do many million of the smaller, less photogenic, but equally important species, frogs, insects, fungi, and so on. So that's the second point. Trees are vital for the diversity of life, a diversity that God cherishes and calls us to serve and preserve. In Proverbs 3:18, we're told that wisdom is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Wisdom in the Bible is different from simple knowledge. We're told wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord, which is a word I've always struggled with. To me, God is love, so why fear? But this suggests fear not as a terror, but as in awestruck respect. The kind of feeling we get when we watch the wonders of nature, or a range of ice-capped mountains, or crashing ocean waves, or grandchildren laughing, or a massive gum tree that we really love. As we watch these trees, we wonder how many human lives have stood underneath it, and what changes it has weathered. In the Bible, wisdom is closely related to observing and learning from wild nature. Wisdom is knowledge for life, which is rooted in a healthy relationship with God and with God's creation, including trees. So the tree of life is about God-centered wisdom, wise living in the light of God's power, God's knowledge, and God's love. Hermann Hesse, a German-Swiss poet and novelist and painter, said, "For me, trees have always been the most penetrating creatures. I revere them when they live in tribes and families, in forests and groves. I revere them when they stand alone. They are like lonely persons. not like hermits who have stolen away out of some weakness, but like great solitary men, like Beethoven and Nietzsche. In their highest boughs, the world rustles. Their roots rest in infinity. But they do not lose themselves there. They struggle with all the force of their lives for one thing only, to fulfill themselves according to their own laws, to build up their own form, to represent themselves. Nothing is holier. Nothing is more exemplary than a beautiful, strong tree. When a tree is cut down and reveals its naked death wound to the sun, one can read its whole history in the luminous inscribed disc of its trunk. In the rings of its years, its scars, its struggles, its sicknesses, its happiness and prosperity stand truly written. The attacks withstood and the storms endured. Trees are sanctuaries. Whoever knows how to speak to them, whoever knows how to listen to them, can learn the truth. They do not preach learning and precepts, they preach undeterred the ancient law of life. A tree says, I am life from eternal life. The attempt and the risk that the Eternal Mother took with me is unique. Unique the form and the veins of my skin, unique the smallest play of leaves in my branches and the smallest scar on my bark. I was made to form and reveal the eternal in my smallest special detail. When we are stricken and cannot bear our lives any longer, then a tree has something to say to us. Be still, be strong. Brother Lawrence, a 17th century barefoot friar, who found God in the pots and pans of his monastery kitchen in Paris, told one such story. In his one published work, a collection of 14 letters, he wrote how a tree in winter, stripped of its leaves, played the pivotal role in his uncanny conversion. It seems the good brother absorbed the tree's stark emptiness, and in that way, the saints and wise souls do, he saw beyond it. He imagined the possible. As it's recorded in his little book, the soon-to-be friar stood before the naked tree, picturing its branches soon filled with tiny leaves, as if clasped in prayer. And thus he was hit head-on, the surging sense of the immensity of the Holy One, all but knocked him down, realizing the life force, the beauty that would burst forth from the barren. Barbara Mahaney writes in her Book of Nature, what are the sermons that the woods, those places of betweenness, repositories of ancient stories, might impart from their branches and twigs, their columnal trunks and their boughs that hold up the sky? Certainly there are tales of resilience and lessons to be learned of Holy Communion, the way the woods and the birds and the scampering creatures all keep watch, share food, warn each other of danger, create ecosystems, and generate necessary humidity. My temple, my mosque, my church of the woods, where the center aisle is earth rubbed raw. It is a holy place to which I return and return. It is a wood that preaches to me, fills me with wordless wisdoms. It is the place where I behold the awe-inspiring mystery of how I hope heaven will someday be. How strange it is that divine attributes can sometimes be seen in something so common, and how we'll miss the whole of it if we refuse to be stopped in our tracks. And perhaps how we don't realize that to see such beauty as a tree is to see and experience God.